Greetings YouTube and welcome to another adventure of Stone Cabin Adventures and the Life and Times of Pinky Calhoun, episode 13, chapter 9. Dubious. I never seen a pig that took to water like little Fatty did. She'd break out of the sky once or twice a week and race to the river fast as her fat little legs would carry her. She always took Bacon Boy with her. We couldn't call him Buddy Bacon because when we got him, we already had a Buddy Bacon that we hadn't butchered yet. When the other buddy makes it to the smoke shed to become hams and bacon and side meat, then we're going to think on changing Bacon Boy's name. All our pigs that we butcher are named Buddy. Bacon Boy loved to eat old acorns and bugs and worms that live under the oak trees. It amazed me that pigs ate terrible stuff and still taste wonderful. That Bacon Boy was the fastest pig I ever seen. Too bad they didn't have pig races. He could have won them all. When I wanted him to come home, I just hollered, "Bugs, bugs, bugs," and he'd come home flying. Unless he was fishing with little Fatty. Then he ignored me. He didn't care if I gave him bugs or apples or chicken guts. He didn't care. If I gave him a treat, he was happy. But if they were fishing, he ignored me. I hated it, little Fatty liked the river. Usually we just call her Fatty. It didn't matter that she was twice Bacon Boy's size. That catfish could have swallowed them both. I kept the mud hole in her sty pumped full of water. Carried 1,000 buckets every day, but she didn't care. She loved that river too much. Every time they went missing, I got sent to the river to bring them home. She and Boy snooted around in the shallows, eating mud and river weeds and everything. Sometimes they swam across the river and ate the weeds on the other side. Fatty caught a big old carp by the tail one day, and she dragged it up on the shore. It pulled her into the deep water a couple of times before she and Boy got it killed. I never seen pigs work like a team before. Then they forgot they were a team and fought over it till they got the whole thing eaten. I could see my breath on Christmas morning when I gathered the eggs. I could see Bossy's breath, too, before Elmer put her in the barn to milk her. Fatty and Boy's breath showed up thick in the air. I don't know why I couldn't see the chickens' breaths. They breathe. I seen their lungs when we butchered some last summer. By lunchtime, it had warmed up enough we had all taken off our coats. Emily and her family came over to share my birthday. After Christmas dinner and birthday cake, Emily and I walked down to the river. I tied my rope around the same tree I had flown from last summer. I made sure I had pieces of last year's Buddy Bacon's ears skewered firm on those hooks. I soaked those ear bits overnight in some of Pa's fish-catching sauce. His fish sauce is made of whiskey and blood and molasses and some secret stuff too. He keeps it buried in the bottom of the old root cellar. It stunk something awful. My hand stunk because I touched it. We can't keep food in the old root cellar because Pa's secret sauce made the place smell awful. That's okay though. He and Elmer dug a new, bigger cellar in the side of the hill. Emily pinched her nose. She looked just like Abigail when she did that. No self-respecting fish is going to come near your hook. You weren't a one-of-a-kind brand new hook forever. That smell will never come off of it. Your hands may be burnt too. She was right about my hands. I raised my eyebrows at her. Don't you worry about my catfish. It's so big, you don't have to worry about respect. I've been wondering, what if you catch big fish and it ain't the biggest one? What happens then? What if one of us gets eat by the bigger fish you didn't catch? I hadn't known My friend was afraid of the river. She might have been more afraid of that catfish than she was of horses. I tried to make her feel better. I only seen one big catfish. Once people see how big my catfish is, they will fish the others plumb out of existence, if there are any. Let me catch my big one, and then we'll give it a week before we start swimming lessons. Dubious. I never heard that word until last week at school. Miss Schwartz gave it to the 5th and the 6th graders as their bonus word. I thought it was a stupid word until I saw the look on Emmy's face. Positively dubious. I laughed at how perfect that word fit. She got mad and walked off without me. I had to talk real fast to make her understand. Apparently, she believes I'm the only student who pays attention to the other grades' spelling words. I'm going back and throwing my hook in the river. You can walk to my home alone, or you can wait for me. Emmy ran up the bank and turned around and screamed at me. I can't be with you when you catch it. The fish will pull you in and eat you. I don't want to watch you die. Well, I just stood there with my mouth open. I finally thought to drop the hook and walk up the bank to her. I started to pat her and then remembered how my hands smelled. We both giggled. I explained I won't check on it till tomorrow after I finish my chores. You and your folks are leaving tonight, right? She nodded, dubious, still scrunched her eyebrows together. Then you got nothing to worry about. I'm not checking it till tomorrow. What if the fish bites right away? A little tear leaked out of each of her eyes. I promise I won't pull the hook out of the river till tomorrow. That fish has to have time to wear itself out before we can pull it in. It took her a while to agree, but she finally nodded her approval. I ran and slid back down the bank to my hook and slung it out in the middle of the river. Emmy had made me think. I didn't know anyone who could answer my new question except one man, Doc Fishface. I had to ask him. Emmy made me wonder how many big fish we needed to catch. I had to know if giant catfish had giant babies or if they just had regular-sized babies that grew and grew. Then I wondered if Ma's big fish was related to mine. I still hadn't decided if they could be related to Jonah's fish or not. 3,000 years was a pretty long time. Doc had a lot of questions to answer. I did not get to check on my hook the next day. We woke up to a howling blizzard. Pa wouldn't even let me or Elmer or Ma help with the outside chores. He held on to the rope that he kept tied from the house to the barn. We had to talk loud to hear each other over the roar of the storm. Ma tried to keep me and Elmer busy, but there's only so much you can do without going outside. Snow blew in through the littlest cracks between the logs of our walls, but it soon filled them up and made the house snug. Out the window, I could barely see that huge tree with the wagon seat swing. In the middle of the night, 3 nights later, I woke up to silence. I sneaked down the stairs to see what the problem was. A half moon peeked in through the corner of the kitchen window that wasn't blocked by the snow. Pa stared out at the night. Pa? He spun around and both his hands slapped against his sides. I dropped flat on the floor and covered my head. It's a good thing he hadn't been wearing his guns. He picked me up off the floor and squeezed me tight. I bet he apologized 100 times. I think he thought he would have shot me. I giggled and asked for a cookie. He gave me half of one. That was more than I thought I would get. What's wrong? Pa didn't usually stand still. Even at church, he had a hard time being still. He stood still as a rock and stared out the window. The blizzard blew itself out. I don't know if any of our stock survived. His voice sounded like he swallowed gravel from the edge of the river. Haven't you been milking Bossy in the barn? He nodded slow, then breathed more normal. Yes, we still have Bossy. I moved Fatty and Bacon Boy inside too. They're in the pen with old Mama Pig. This storm was a bad one. It may have quit snowing and blowing, but we still have to contend with the mess it left behind. How bad a mess? I looked around the house and didn't see a single thing I was going to have to clean up. He opened the front door and I saw what he meant. A wall of snow had piled up against the door. We were in jail in our cabin. The snow had locked us in. I could only see a thin line of darkness at the top of the door. I breathed funny and my heart got tight. Pa said the door to the chicken coop was completely buried. He had told us about making a path from the house to the barn every day, but it filled back in almost as fast as he made the path. I remember part of a poem that Miss Schwartz read to us and tried to repeat it for Pa. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to nothing but snow and more snow. You can't see nothing but the moon in the night. Mr. Moore got that part right about the luster of midday, right? Not that all that light does any good. I see nothing but snow. Patches showed up on the second morning of the blizzard with 6 cows. I let them all go in the barn. Elmer or I will need to shovel that mess out of there. All the animals need water today. They'll need feed too. I'll take care of it. You stay inside. It's 20 feet and deeper in some of the drifts. Probably 50 feet or deeper in some of the canyons. I've never seen a snow like this. It's going to be a while before I can catch on my fish at the river, isn't it? One eyebrow quirked up. He shook his head and whispered my name. Do you think Letha had her baby in the storm? He muttered a word that I should not have heard. She might have even had it on your birthday. I should have told you and Ma, thanks for letting Emmy and her family come over for my birthday. I know it was Christmas too. What did you get for your birthday from Mr. Harkin? You were as happy to see the string around the package as you were whatever was in the package. I laughed because he was right. He and I both knew what I'd gotten from Mr. Harkin. I figured Pa was just changing the subject. I kissed Pa's cheek. I measured that string on the bottom of my foot. He gave me 57 feet of string and 1 more gold heart because I'm 8 now. I'll be 9 next Christmas. How old do you think you'll be when you become mayor? I didn't know Pa took me serious about being the mayor. Maybe Governor Pitkin had convinced him. I figure they probably won't let me until I'm at least 15 or so. Will Adam care if you're the mayor? I smiled and shook my head at Pa. That man had a way of finding out things that I thought nobody knew. He shouldn't mind. He don't even know I'm going to marry him. Pa smiled and gave me the other half of the cookie. And then he sent me back to bed. I sat up and listened to him and Ma talking in the dark. I couldn't tell what they said, but I could hear the comfortable rumble of their voices in the night. I could hear them sharing their secrets. Ma laughed soft and low. I love that sound. When I hear her laugh like that in the dark, I knew everything was good in my world. I looked forward to the new year It promised to bring big changes. I had no idea how many changes or how terrible some of those changes were going to be. The end. Well, the end of that chapter. So, thank you so much for listening. We do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, but most important, share the video with your friends, your enemies, and your frenemies. With your family too, but most of my family members fall into that friend category, or at least friendly, mostly. Mostly. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful life, and I will see you in about a week for the next episode of Pinky. God bless. Mwah.